but I'm here to welcome you this morning. It's great to see you all here, and I hope that 2023 is off to a good start. So, as usual, we're going to start with some introductions. Here from our board, we have Jerry Squares with Forge Products, Jay Shawnee with RS Realty of Texas, Jerry Young with Mustang Caterpillar, and Dr. Quentin Wright with Lone Star College. And then representing some of our elected officials, we have Sarah Singleton here from District A, Councilmember Peck, Ray Guerra from Commissioner Leslie Briones, Precinct 4, new staff for Precinct 4, so welcome. And also we've got Chief Lofton Harrison and our patrol guys with the Constable's Office. From HPD North Command, Sergeant Panfilo Galvan. And from District Attorney Kim Ogg's office, Chief C.O. Bradford. And I think that's all that I've got. If there's anybody else, I'm sorry. I do have T. Trong and Zach Kane from Harmony School of Endeavor. So at each of these events, we run the slideshow showing new developments and renovations and new businesses. I hope you've noticed the additions that we've got coming. And I want to give you a few quick project updates. The West Little York Pedestrian Improvements Project, the new sidewalks and signature bus shelter is complete, finally. All of you that deal with permitting, I feel your pain. We will be, it's been tough. We will be starting some repairs of damages due to utility installations. The West Tidwell Pedestrian Improvements Project is at 90% design completed and will soon be posted for bids. This will replace sidewalks from Antoine to TC Jester and create a welcoming gateway to the White Oak Bike Trail. We have completed designs for intersection improvements at Bingle and West Tidwell. This should go into construction later this year. These three projects are all basically paid by grants. And then CDAB, our crime deterrence for apartments and businesses, is our newest public gathering. Each month, we host law enforcement, commercial property owners, and business owners or managers. Oh, wait a minute, gotta flip my page. To meet to discuss areas of interest and concern. Please feel free to join us for that meeting, and Walter manages that. Walter, wave your hand. Manages that. So thanks to all of you for coming this morning to hear from Dr. Dan Potter with the Kinder Institute. We're going to give you a few minutes to eat and chat, and then we'll be back. Thank you. Potter, PhD, is the Senior Director of Research at the Kinder Institute for Urban Research at Rice University. Most of us just call it the Kinder Institute. In his role, Dr. Potter oversees the 5 research centers that comprise KIUR, including the development and build-out of 3 new research centers focused on housing and neighborhoods, community and public health, and economic mobility and inequality. Dr. Potter is leading the Houston Population Research Center at Kinder, which houses the Kinder Houston Area Survey that we've all been seeing every year for 42 years now. Dr. Potter has authored journal articles, research reports and briefs, and book chapters. Dr. Potter earned his PhD in sociology from the University of Virginia. Dan, welcome to the district, and thanks for joining us this morning. I'd like to turn it over to you, and then we'll follow up with a few questions.
Good morning. It is wonderful to be here this morning to have this opportunity to chat with you. The title of my talk today kind of gives away all of my punchlines. And so I'm here to talk, of course, with you about you. And in that regards, you all are the experts. So let me just own up front, I'm sharing with you data. To the extent that these data may not be resonating with you, you may have questions about how accurate they are reflective of the community in which you all are a part of. I welcome that feedback. And it speaks to the way in which data gets us part of the way, but in fact, it's the lived experiences that get us all the way. So, growing places with new faces, looking at the Near Northwest Management District, 1990s to 2020s. So, real quick, you all, of course, know this, but Near Northwest Management District, coming around in 2001. You all cover around 16 square miles, and this organization came into existence in part to establish coordinated economic growth, to really push and provide opportunities for cultural activities, as well as to ensure some degree of public welfare, and again, just working together in these spaces. For this talk, I'm going to offer us sort of two large pieces of data. One of them is going to be driven by census data. This is just information about who's here, and it's really going to tell us this story about some of the new neighbors that we look around and we see in the near Northwest Management District. In fact, over the last 30 years, you all have seen about a 51% increase in your population size. That increase, that growth, has largely been driven by Hispanic and Black families coming into this community. And then what we're going to do is looking at how those changes translate over to things like education trends, renters versus homeowners, as well as what that's done to some of our income in this area. And then we'll turn our attention at the second part of the presentation to looking at some of what we've learned and heard from the near Northwest Management District as part of our Kinder Houston area survey. And we're going to kind of view it in 4 data points. Those 4 data points will correspond to some of the census data that we'll be looking at. So, you all, over the last 30 years, have grown by about 86,000 neighbors. Back in 1990, you clocked in at above 168,000, so plenty of folks, obviously. Since then, upwards of 255,000 individuals in the area. Now, of course, we see this growth has been steady, but this growth is actually hiding some very, very significant, and I'd argue different, trends demographically. And so if we break down this growth and change by the race and ethnic composition of individuals in the neighborhood, what we see is that there have been more than 100,000 new Hispanic neighbors coming into the near Northwest Management District, over 10,000 new Black neighbors, almost 10,000 new Asian neighbors. So a lot of growth, a lot of this diversification, a lot of new faces in the area. With all of that growth, you do see slightly fewer white faces in the community. And so while we have an overall growth, you do see that growth coming in a few different ways. With this change, you see your neighborhood, your community looking a little bit different in terms of its composition. Back in 1990, Hispanic individuals made up about 15% of the near Northwest Management District. Today, they make up over 50%. During this same time period, you see Black residents making up about a quarter, 1 in 4, fluctuating a little bit, but remaining relatively consistent across time. And so you've got this growing neighborhood, this changing neighborhood. And yet in that changing, you also see a level of consistency. And so we can look at the education level of adults here in the near Northwest Management District. And so over the last 30 years, you see slightly hovering around 50% of adults here with at least some sort of college experience. That may be they went to college, graduated, beyond, but about half of the residents coming in with some sort of college experience. Next, beyond that, you have about 30% with a little bit less than 30% with a high school diploma, and then that and the less than high school clocking in there, again, a little bit less than that 30%. So you see this changing composition of the neighborhood while at the same time, consistencies. Looking at housing units, more people translated to more households, and so we see this top line here, this dark blue line showing us we've got increasing numbers of housing units in the area. Well, whether or not those housing units are owned by the people living there or rented, we see these numbers, they do swap. So if we flash back in time to 1990, you do have slightly more homeowners than you did renters in the area. But you had relative parity in that over time, while that has swapped, it has continued to maintain that relative parity of about 50-50 renter homeowners as it relates to those folks living in this area. The income of residents in the near Northwest Management District has been going up over time. Flash back to 1990, you're sitting at a little bit above $30,000. Come forward to today, you're sitting at around $50,000. On the one hand, this may be good news. These numbers are not adjusted, however, for inflation. And when you do start to adjust for inflation, while you do see the income of residents increasing over time, the buying power of residents in the area hasn't quite kept up with what we see from an inflation perspective. And so income's up, buying power ticking down. So that's who's here. And how who is here has changed over the last 3 decades. And so we can look at those individuals and what have we heard from them? And the Kinder Houston Area Survey offers us an opportunity to get at just that. What have we heard from individuals in Near Northwest Management District? So a quick little blurb, what is the Kinder Houston Area Survey? In case this is the first time you're hearing about it, this is a survey of the Houston area, aptly named, and it started back in 1982. Dr. Steve Kleinberg, a sociologist at the Rice University, started this with his class, and it has grown now, being collected annually. We literally just finished up the 42nd annual collection 2 weeks ago, and so it has been collected annually ever since. Now, while these data do help us understand what are we hearing from, what are we learning from folks here in and around the Houston area, I just got to be upfront. It's not necessarily representative of folks here in the Near Northwest Management District. In other words, we've heard from you all, but we may not have gotten quite a representative sample of everyone here. So, who did we hear from? Well, over the last this one includes about 41 years of data, so over the last 41 years, we've heard from about 2,200 residents here in Near Northwest Management District. We can see the breakdown of those residents for our different time periods, having more or less folks from the Near Northwest Management District talking with us over time. The point being, we've heard from several folks here. Who are these folks that we've heard from? Well, about half of the respondents that we were able to connect with here from Near Northwest Management District were female. About half had at least some sort of college experience. Half are married. The family sizes for the folks that we were talking with ranged from 3 to 3.6, 3.5. So in that vein, half of the homes that we were connected with had a child living in those homes actively. The average age of the people that we were talking with ranged from the late 30s to the late 40s. Now, to be clear, we had younger folks that we were talking to. We had older folks that we were talking to. I'm just talking about averages here. In terms of the race and ethnic composition of who we were talking with, we see that change that was captured there in the census data. As we were talking with about 12% of Hispanic respondents during the 80s and early 90s, and now, more recently today, we're talking with about 41% of Hispanic folks here in the Near Northwest Management District. And then in terms of, again, tracing some of what we see from an income dynamics over the last several decades, the percent of respondents making $50,000 or more grew from about 21% to 42%. So, our survey is not intended to be representative, but I do share this with you to say, as you're thinking about some of the trends we were seeing in the census as it related to education, as it related to ethnicity, as it related to income, the folks that we were talking with give us a bit of a representation of who all's here and some of the changes that you all are seeing here. And so, with that information, let's see, what were folks thinking? What are folks feeling? And we can start with just asking a question about the general outlook that folks had here in the Near Northwest Management District. And so the survey question we asked them, when you look ahead in the next few years, do you tend to believe the country is in for better times? We see consistency. Now, slightly less than half, hovering anywhere between 45 and 40%, came back and said, yeah, I see positive outlooks for our country. And that's true back in the 80s and 90s, as it is today, in 2014s and 2020s. But that's the country. What about Houston? What about more locally? So we asked folks, thinking about the quality of life here in Houston, do you think things are going to be getting better? Do you think things are going to be the same? Do you think they're going to be getting worse? Well, how many people that told us that they think things are going to be the same, or they're even going to get better? Well, here what we see is we see a growing optimism. And this growing optimism is something that you see, yes, across the Houston space being that blue line there that's kind of hidden by the green line most of the time. And again, just speaking to the fact that the Near Northwest Management District, following some of those overall trends we're seeing here in the Houston area, where we've got that optimism that future outlook here, going from a little bit into the mid-60s up into the 70s over the last 30 years. Consistency, consistently high, growing, increasing satisfaction, and optimism. Where might that optimism be coming from? Well, what about jobs? You know, when we look around our neighborhoods, do we feel like our neighborhoods are providing us with the job opportunities that allow for us to go out and do what we need to do to be able to provide for ourselves, our families, contribute into the society? And so we asked, hey, what do you think about job opportunities? You know, are they good and excellent? And so what do we hear when it comes to job opportunities? Well, here's where you start to see some real changes taking place, both, again, across the Houston area as well as the Near Northwest Management District. If we look back in the 1980s, you'll see about 30% of folks are reporting, yes, job opportunities in the Houston space. They're good, they're excellent. And over time, we see an up and a down a little bit, but we've got this general trend of up, increasing now to where you're up over 60% of your neighbors talking about they're being excited about the job opportunities here in the Houston area. Other things that might be contributing to folks' outlook on life and their views of things, we can think about health. And so we asked residents, you know, in general, how would you say your health is? Would you say it's poor, fair, good, very good, excellent? And so we can look at what percent of our neighbors are telling us that they feel like their health is very good or excellent. And here, we again come back to this level of consistency. A little bit of up, a little bit of down, but we're hovering in the mid-40s to 50. So slightly less than half of our neighbors reporting that they view their health as being very good or excellent. Now, we can sort of poke at that as well and think to ourselves, well, what might be some of the things that people are reflecting upon when they consider their own health? And so we can think about air quality, water quality, and how do people feel like we're doing as a community, as an area, as it relates to providing ourselves with quality air, quality water. And here, we actually see in the Near Northwest Management Districts, residents are beginning to notice some of these efforts translating into cleaner air, cleaner water, cleaner living. We see historically where Houston and Near Northwest Management District has tended to have relatively low views of the type of efforts towards quality air and quality water. But we can see this uptick, and really, again, in the Near Northwest Management District, this extreme increase taking place more recently as it relates to these efforts to get us clean air, clean water. It's not to say we're there, but again, your residents are seeing movement in the right direction. We can also talk about what might be some of the things shaping attitudes and views of our neighborhood that continue to concern people. And so one of the questions that we've asked our residents over time, talking with them about some of their worries, some of their fears, and in particular, asking folks if they're worried about themselves or a member of their family becoming a victim of a crime. And so what we have heard, and again, this is where you see Near Northwest Management District following closely with the rest of Houston, arguably there is concern. Concern is elevated. You can see there's a slightly declining level of concern there. But about 70% back in the 1990s reporting a concern with crime victimization, decreasing down into the 60s now, but probably a little bit higher than what we're hoping for our residents to be feeling in terms of their sense of security and safety. But of course, it's not all needing to be doom and gloom here. We can also think about what are ways in which people are giving back and pouring into the community, in particular volunteering. And so again, asking, what are residents doing to contribute into their communities? Have you volunteered, given of your time, or donated to a charity in the last 30 days? And what have we heard over time from residents of Near Northwest Management District? A little bit lower rates, but consistent rates. And again, keeping in mind in the background all of the changes that this area is going through, the growth that's taking place, to continue to have that through line of engagement with the community. About a quarter of folks, 30% of folks reporting that volunteering, donating, giving to charity. And of course, with all of these changes and with all of these differences, we can also ask ourselves, well, how might this be shaping the politics of our area? And so we ask, which political party do you most affiliate with? And what we see is the majority of near Northwest Management District folks are increasingly identifying with the Democratic Party. You flash back to the 80s and 90s, relative parity between the Democrat and Republican, you see a separation. Oh my goodness, what's going on? Do we really see this turnover in our neighborhood, in our communities? Well, before we perhaps jump into conclusions, we can also look at, well, you may identify with a particular party, but what about your views? Do you consider yourself conservative? Do you consider yourself moderate? Perhaps liberal? Well, when we ask people this question, we get a different story about here in the near Northwest Management District. Again, consistency, about half, slightly less than half, but right there at that 50% mark, people coming in saying, yeah, I am conservative. And I will, these are the same people of the last slide, in case anybody was wondering. About half people coming in and saying, yeah, I identify my ideology, my thoughts, my beliefs, feelings, leaning into the conservative space. You also see a healthy presence, folks identifying moderate, centrist. I'm right in the middle here, maybe pragmatic views of things. You do see some increase, uptick in the percent liberal, but again, that's just not going to be your primary neighbors there. So we've got this changing party politics while also some consistency in where our thoughts and views exist. And how those thoughts and views translate into our thoughts around policy and what we might want to see done for the area, well, we asked folks, hey, do you think we're spending too much, too little, about the right amount to improve the conditions of people in poverty? And what we see consistently across the board, folks vote too little, need to do more, can translate it that way. So most folks, and again, thinking about that ideology question, that where their politics might exist, is not shaping what they view about, hey, yeah, we can reach out to our neighbors, we can be doing more to help lift up folks who might not quite have what they need to make ends meet right now. We can also ask about the environment and how we might go about cleaning it up and protecting it and improving it, recognizing that we're surrounded by such beautiful green space, so how do we take care of it? And indeed, what we see is that there is relative consensus still that we could be doing a little bit more. At the same time that there's a general consensus around doing a little bit more, there is a healthy viewpoint that we're doing about right. And so again, it's this when we're looking around our neighborhoods, thinking about ways in which we might be able to do better, there seems to be an appetite of we're making the improvements that we might be after. Maybe we could be doing a little bit more here. But we have these views in place. So this is what we've seen, our changing demographics. We've seen our attitudes and beliefs over the last 40 years encapsulated here in a handful of slides. And so what are our takeaways? Well, here in the near Northwest Management District, there's a level of consistency, even amongst and in this place that's growing so fast and that has all of these new faces. We have more neighbors here than ever before. This area continues to grow. That growth really being driven by Hispanic families, Black families, making that biggest contribution into that space of growth. We do see our incomes going up, perhaps a little slower than we might want, not keeping up with the inflation piece. And so yes, folks are making more, but their buying power might be dropping off a little bit. And again, even with all of these changes and all of these differences, new residents, new neighbors, more neighbors, there is a sign of consistency that you all have in the near Northwest Management District in terms of residents' health, concerns around safety and crime, volunteerism. Again, that's not all just doom and gloom. Let's get back to the community. And also in our political beliefs. And again, that last one, even as we might be seeing our party ID change, some of our thoughts, feelings, reflections of our political stances has remained consistent. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. Questions? So right now you're looking at about 255,000. Correct. Yes. I would actually encourage you not to draw real conclusions because, oh, the question was you've got 255,000 people living here, you've got 2,200 people in this survey, and really, sir, not even 2,200. The 2,200 is over the last 40 years. And so I would say please don't draw conclusions. In fact, and indeed, why would you be listening is in fact because it's an opportunity to hear the voices of your neighbors and to recognize that perhaps, while not necessarily a representative sample, it offers us an opportunity to reflect on who's here.
You said 2,200 over one period of time. How many actually in the last 5 years?
In the last 5 years, you're talking about 350.
350, so we're down to less than 100 to 1%.
Just curious, how were the survey respondents selected? Did they volunteer? You knocked on doors? You called them? Or you mail them something? How did you pick these?
Gotcha. So there's a randomizing of selection that takes place, and so we go through, and it involves both a mailer as well as a telephone follow-up.
What did you find with age in terms of trends in the population?
In terms of trends of the population with regards to age, the question was what trends in age did we happen to see? And so with our survey respondents, they were tending to get a little bit older for the area. With our census respondents, they were remaining relatively consistent with folks in their, again, it's primarily 30s and 40s. So as new folks were coming in, there was a sort of injection of younger residents into the area as the residents who were already here were growing.
What was your average income now for this area?
51,000. And that was median for what it's worth.
So if you normalized income, our income per capita versus Houston income per capita over the years, I assume the trend is significantly down. So we're on average learning less per person than Houston over the years.
The city of Houston's median income follows very closely with Near Northwest Management District.
If the questions on the screen were the same as those in the survey, my question is whether it was air quality, jobs, health, or how things going in general. The respondents' choices were good or excellent, same or better. Why not have an option of poor or worse?
So you are calling out my presentation and not the survey itself. I was trying to hone us in on what we were going to be looking at from our response options. You're absolutely right. We want to make sure we're offering the spectrum. And in fact, when we do ask the survey, it says, hey, when you're thinking about jobs, is the opportunities poor, fine, fair, good, very good, excellent? So residents, respondents have the opportunity to provide the spectrum. I was honing us in on perhaps looking at the more positive takes in terms of responses.
Thank you, Councilman.
Absolutely.
Does the Institute take the results of this study and incorporate it into anything that's forward-looking, trying to project what we're going to see over the next 5, 10 years?
We historically have not. We are in the process right now of standing up a population research center. That is in many ways the reason we are trying to stand up the population research center. It is one thing for us to take data and look backwards and to sort of tell the story of maybe who we might have been. How do we start looking forward to understand who are we going to be? That's a critical question, and it's not something that we've tackled typically, but we're looking to. I saw a hand way in the back, and then I got this gentleman further up. So.
A lot of the trend lines seem to track pretty closely to Houston, some didn't. I wonder if you can comment on the starkest difference in question.
Yeah, the biggest difference that popped out, you're right. So the question that was asked was the trends here in the Near Northwest Management District, the trends for Houston relatively tracking with one another, where might they have differed, and really it comes back to residents' views around what are we doing about the environment, and what are we doing about, sorry, not the environment, the air quality, the water quality, what are we doing to improve that and make that better? That's where you see some upticks in Houston, but near Northwest Management District, just a significant increase there relative to the rest of the city. So residents are seeing the efforts around the area that seem to be translating to their viewing of cleaner, better air and water.
Yeah, so I, a few weeks ago, read the article about Kleinberg. Does the Kinder Institute have, the funding and the plan and the inclination to keep doing this survey?
Yes, we do. Not only do we want to keep doing it, we want to grow it out. One of the things, and again, sort of the criticism that I've heard offered here is you're telling me about a few hundred people, we've got a few 100,000 people here, and in fact, we want to own that, and we want to do better about that. And so one of the things we're in the process right now of doing is going about building out this survey so that I'm not, so every year we talk to about maybe 1,600, 1,800 people around Houston, a representative sample, but it's just representative of the entire city, not locations within the city. Right now, we're trying to build it up to about 6,200 people, and that's going to allow us to not just say, well, we have a few hundred people here, what do you think? But rather it's representative of these areas. And so now we'll be able to talk more about local geographies and compare local geographies. It's an investment we're making because it's important to pull forward the fact that Houston is not just a large space, it's a diverse space. And we can't talk about it as a monolith, we can't talk about it as a singularity, we got to pull out differences. And so that's our goal moving forward.
Daniel, I understand that the survey industry has faced some challenges with how we communicate with one another. Could you touch on that?
Communicate with one another.
On phone lines?
Oh my goodness, yes. Okay, yes, no one picks up their phone anymore. And so over the last... if you see Kinder University on your caller ID, please pick up. We are working right now to try to connect with people in ways that they are more comfortable connecting with. And so that has involved email, that has involved text messaging. I'm not going to answer my phone, but I will click on your message. And so we've been exploring different technologies because the fact is, if we're only talking to people on a landline, our survey starts to look very different than the rest of the Houston, than actually who's here, right? And so we have to do better about that, and those are the practices that we're implementing right now.
That may be part of your age difference.
Absolutely.
Did you have much on the survey as far as the Northwest being the small business capital of Houston? That was always the reputation of this area, like ITEM of the Energy Corridor and all these other ones, but did many of them ever say that because we love the small business here in this area there? This is always had the reputation. I've been here 20-something years, so in this area there, and that was always, when you first moved in, the Northwest is the small business capital.
I do not know if we have asked that question directly, but you can obviously see that payoff there in terms of the job opportunities that you all are bringing to the area are resonating with residents as they view this place and the optimism around job opportunities more and more and more over time.
Another question.
Uh-huh.
Is the survey done in-house?
Yes.
And how big is the staff that does the survey?
There's about 5 of us.
5 of you. Okay. And what is the dollar amount that you folks expend on survey?
Most of it goes towards incentives. We want to make sure that we're valuing people's time, the respondents' time. And so it is a significant sum of money that does get spent out.
When you say incentives, what do you mean, they get paid per survey or what?
Correct.
Can I have the job?
I bet you do a great job too.
I could do 300 in a month. And it took 5 years.
Just curious on that topic.
Uh-huh.
How much do you pay the respondents and how long does it take them to respond to the survey?
We have incentivized them with $15 electronic gift cards that they get immediately upon completing the survey. Survey takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete.
Are you looking into any new categories? That's one of the things I enjoy about the survey is,
Mhm.
religions one time looked at, or other trends that may come about. Anything new that you're looking into?
Great question. Thank you for it. Every single year, we are looking to bring in new information. The trends are really helpful. They tell us about where we were, where we are. The new questions give us, that opportunity to look locally. And so we have questions that we fielded this year, getting around topics of physical activity, the use of parks and green space, recognizing as we're, again, sort of moving past that pandemic period and getting back out. Well, how are we getting back out? Are we getting back out? We are looking at topics like that. We are also looking at topics around social issues such as gun violence and what are folks' views around that space. And also just, again, always looking to hear from the community about what are the things we need to be asking about. The Kinder Houston Area Survey is a fantastic tool for us to be able to lift the voices of the community forward and really understand who we are. Yeah, we have these trends. Yes, these trends are really helpful. We want to make sure that this survey is reflecting back on the community what it's interested in knowing about as well. So constantly looking for new ideas for each survey.
Have you ever thought about asking the question from an employer standpoint about able to find enough help?
So I'm going to take off my hat here and put on my education research hat. We have, yes, and that is one of the things that we hear regularly. It's not part of this survey. It's part of the conversations we have. I was actually discussing this with Quentin earlier about the career and technical education space here in the Houston area and that pipeline from K to 12 into early career success, what that looks like, how that works out, and how oftentimes you hear employers going, I don't need them to be an expert small engine repairman. I need them to show up on time. I need them to understand communication. I need them to fill in the blanks. Soft skills is kind of the group.
And you said you don't ask that.
No.
But you talked about it.
Through other research at the Kinder
Do
Institute.
you have any feeling as to how that's leaning?
When you say that's leaning,
In other words, are people struggling to find workers?
the alignment question is real. And is of course two ways. On the one hand, it's the qualifications and the preparation, and on the other hand, it's the compensation, right? So the qualifications and the preparation is the employer, and then the compensation is the employee thinking oftentimes.
And I bring this up. Our problem isn't their qualifications. Our problem is getting them to come to work or even come to apply.
Yeah, the preparation piece. Yep.
We have a really good sample in this room if you ever want to send one out.
Okay. Talk to employers. Perfect.
One last question, and I promise I'll stand down. I almost asked you to freeze the frame if my vision was correct, regarding crime, public safety in general, and citizens' fear. And you indicated that's trending downward. I wanted to say, wait a minute, freeze this frame. Let's discuss this a little bit. Would you talk a little bit more about that, please?
So we can look at that trend in terms of what people are saying about their views of being a victim of crime. So this is not necessarily a reflection of criminal activity that may be happening in our communities, but rather our personal feelings about our susceptibility to that crime. And so if you look back in the 1990s, what you see is you have about 3/4 of folks coming in and saying, yeah, I'm concerned. I'm worried for myself, I'm worried for my family, and it has remained high over time, but you also see a slight tick down in that people are not quite seeing that same level of fear and concern. It is not gone by any stretch of the imagination. I think we would all want to live in a city and in a community where that number is significantly lower, that we walk around not with fearing being the victim of a crime, but enjoying the beauty that we have, around us, enjoying our neighborhoods, enjoying our parks and green space.
So even 5 years ago, the fear search is moving downwards when I'm looking at it.
Yes. And again, you're seeing very subtle declines, but declines.
I'll stand down.
And if you know and if you can share it, we've got the two kind of being the same there, but was there any particular part of Houston that was higher than what we see that basically brought it
I had not divided this up based off of other neighborhoods around the area. These are averages, right? And so you're totally pointing that for that average to be where it is, there are going to be places that are higher. And if I'm kind of understanding what you're pushing at is, where are they? Who are they? What's going on over there? And where is it lower? And who are they? And what are they doing? And what's going on over there? And is there something for us to learn? Is there something for us to understand about policies, programs, practices, people that might help to figure out, yeah, do we pull that down here near Northwest Management District a little bit more? Yeah, I don't have that answer, but it's a very, very valid question there.
I have two questions.
Yes.
The first question is circle back to the survey, as far as like improvement. With these surveys, is it more than just multiple choice given? Like, are they given the opportunity to input and fill out, that open space saying, hey, we need this in our community, in our neighborhood? Are they given that, or is it just multiple choice?
We use a lot of multiple choice. There are also some open-ended items that ask for people to talk about what are changes they might want to see, what are concerns that they might have. And even within our multiple choice items, there's oftentimes an other, please specify, which not the best opportunity, but an opportunity for respondents to offer text, written feedback that they may have there on an item.
Second question, I want to circle back to your preparation.
Uh-huh.
That you mentioned. So, is there any talks or is it offered as far as workshops to help, build their communication skills, them filling out applications, having help with resumes, things of that nature?
A lot of public school districts around the area do offer that. It's not oftentimes, they offer that. United Way partners with multiple organizations in and around the Houston area. The Alliance, SIR Jobs offers these Oh, thank you very much. Workforce Solutions. There are lots of organizations out there aiming to work with youth to get them some of these soft skills to, help them understand the importance of arriving on time, arriving prepared, arriving unaltered. Those can be things that are a difficult conversation to have, but as we work with youth and understand, how do we develop our careers and expand our livelihoods, that's the work that is being done there.
So in the interest of hitting my 8:45
Oh, sorry, yes. Thank you all very much.
Daniel, thank you very much, and we have a little thank you. Your own little goodie bag. So I have a couple things to wrap up with you guys here. Again, Daniel, thank you so much for that. And I do want to say, I remember about 10 years ago, I came to work on a Monday and nobody had been shot in the district over the weekend, so that was a big, plus for us. So, we've seen those trends coming down in terms of that actual crime. So a couple of announcements for you. Speaking of improved air and water quality, we've got the annual spring plant sale coming up at the end of the month, March 25th. Heidi will be giving her in-person presentation. The sale opens, it's online only, opens at noon that day and ends at 6 p.m. on April 2nd. And we have a handout for you out front. And we've also got kind of our what's upcoming, so be sure to pick that up. And then we've got a big drum roll presentation for you here. Every 2 years, we go through the process of confirming and updating the businesses in our district, and then reprinting our business directory map, and this is the brand new edition that you guys will be getting to take home today. So we've got a short little video to show you how it works. So, ta-da! We've been working on this This online version is new for us. It's interactive. So everybody who leases retail or office space, when you get new tenants, have them come sign up with us to get their listing online. And so we hope it's going to be a big success, and we hope all of you use it. So thank you again all for coming out this morning. We hope you had a good time. We hope you learned some interesting things with Dr. Potter, and look for your invitation for the June 1st next meeting. Thank you.